And today we're talking about competition and how it affects relationships. So, hi, I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the awesome and amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hello, Laura. And this topic is something that we all need to recognize because we think we're doing a healthy relationship, but if we don't recognize the competitive elements, our relationship isn't healthy.
Yeah, the hallmarks of relationship really have to do with trust, feeling safe. And then I know we've talked a lot about what you talk about equity and equality,
Equality
quality, and
and reciprocity and mutuality and all those things are unavailable when you're in a relationship that has competition. So you really have to recognize that you can't have equality and competition because I'm trying to be better than you.
yeah.
I'm so gone. We're not going to have reciprocity because I don't want for you what I want for me. And we're not going to have mutuality, which is the ability to put the other person, their goals and their needs and everything as a high priority in the relationship for each other. So competition denies that as well.
It just sounds pretty toxic, and there's a lot of relationships I see where it's like, oh, we're going to fight for this, or we're very competitive, even sports wise, but it kind of taints all those three elements, like you just said. And it also shows up, feel like when people are insecure, they have to be better than, like you said, they have to win over something because they don't feel good about themselves. How does that show up?
Well, it shows up in two ways. One of them will be that they will give up the competition in an endeavor to let the other person feel better. And then they think that other person feeling better will cause the relationship to get better. But the other person is not in that mindset when they want to compete with you and you let them. They just want more. They're going to take more and take more. So it doesn't solve the problem at all. And so if you give up, the relationship is going to get more and more one-sided. And if you recognize it and you stay in the competition, you'll never feel safe. You'll never, there's no end point. There's no sanctuary. A healthy relationship should be a safe place to land for both people. And it isn't when there's competition.
Yeah, you'll never be validated. You'll never feel good about yourself or be seen as being right in anybody's eyes. There's so much that doesn't work with competition, but I don't know that everybody always realizes whether they're using or being competitive. It can be unconscious, don't you think?
Well, it can just creep into the relationship. At the beginning of a relationship, everybody's on their best behavior, best foot forward, hiding their flaws, even though they recognize they have them sometimes. But what my favorite topic, hijackal, is they have no flaws in their mind, so they're not going to recognize that they have them. But in a relationship that is not hijackal based, people have to be willing to look at themselves and to see clearly that if the relationship have those three things, is there equality? Well, if I'm looking out to have power over you in any way, like I do that better, or you're not good at that, as opposed to just realizing that, yeah, I do that better and I want to do that and you don't like doing it, so I'll do it. That's not competition. But it's a subtle competition that happens. People undercutting you with a remark. People like to do that when you're in public. There are other people there and then they make a remark and it undercuts you and they're counting on the fact that you won't react. And that's competition. Or they always want to make the decisions. Where are we going? What are we doing? What are we eating? What are we buying? And it's always a struggle, and it's a one-way struggle. You start to see those things that they need to have a certain amount of one-upmanship. They may not be hijackals. They may not be more than hijackals, but they may just simply feel that they need to feel dominant in some way, even if that's just regularly winning their point or getting to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and it all kind of, not all, but a lot of this feels like when you're insecure, you overcompensate and you don't even know you are overcompensating when you blurt out these things like, "Oh, I did that too," or they hear something, they're always relating it to themselves. "Oh, you went to
Mhm.
Europe? I went to Europe, and blah, 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 and I did this and I did this," and trying to make yourself equal or better than, mostly
Well, that
better.
can be bonding. It can be a bonding, but taking your point, which is a good one, is that if somebody's talking about their experience, you can ask them questions about their experience without saying, "Oh, well, I had it too," so that we're constantly comparing experiences and it can become a competition. But to be able to relate, say, "Oh, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I felt that too," and keep the conversation focused on the speaker, that's the tricky bit. But if you feel like you can't give that other person, particularly your partner, you can't give them that extra airtime. You can't give them your attention because you're longing to grab it back. Then you can recognize some competition.
Yeah. And it seems like one of the things I like to do that someone who's focused on competition might miss out on is I really like to enjoy the experience and relive with them their experience, because it's like I get to go again, like we're talking about travel or whatever they're talking about. And when I ride the wave of their emotion, that's really bonding. I get that,
Yeah.
and then I can invite them to, ride the wave of mine by saying, when I was there, da da da, this happened, and it was like that. And did you have that experience? Not like
Right.
as like I had it, but you might not have. And see, my experience was so much more valid than yours. It's more like, wow, you had it. I'm affirming their experience, and I'm wanting a piece of it to be a part of it vicariously, and then I invite them into mine is kind of the difference one
Mm.
way.
Yeah.
Not the
But what
only.
you're talking about is enriching the experience for both of you.
Yes.
Right? You're both feeling better about it. Wow, yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, that was cool. And when I saw it, it was on this kind of a day. Well, you're enriching each other's experience. But if it's one-upmanship, well, I was there longer, the weather was better, I found a better restaurant. It's like you say, it's subconscious.
And it could be
Um,
subtle because, like, well, did you eat at this restaurant? It was like the best, like that's a subtle form of competition. Like you missed out on something
yeah.
that I didn't.
And what this point that you're bringing up is so important because unless we draw attention to it, people will let it go by and think it was a substitute for a shared experience. And it's not that we want to become, overly scrutinizing every conversation, but we want to recognize in close relationships that there could be this competitive element, and it's what causes you to feel unsettled or unseen. Um, and and you walk away and you go, I don't know what happened, but I didn't enjoy that. I don't feel like we shared something. And it's because the other person needed to one up you or to have had a better experience or took more airtime. You know, I think we all have friends. I have a friend who, if I talk about something, even if she asks, how did this go? I'm only going to get 3 sentences and then she's going to talk about her experience of that. And that'll be 30 sentences. Right? Now, there are lots of things I value about her, but that's the way it goes. And it's unconscious. She doesn't realize that she does that. So, what I do is after 10 or 15 sentences, I say, as I was saying about my experience, and I take it back to, I want to be part of this conversation too. Um, so it's not a deal breaker always. It's something to notice so that you can add more equality to the conversation. And then you've taken a little charge to say, I don't want to walk away feeling like I just was an instrument for that person to tell their story. I really had an experience with them. And maybe the person goes, oh, yeah, I did start talking a lot. And the same person will say that after a while, like, Oh, I did it again. I've been talking about myself for a half hour. Yep, you did. You know? So it's just part of the experience that you share together and grow. And nobody's going to be perfect in any way. So you can love somebody who has these tendencies, and then you rectify it because of your feeling, your need, and you bring it back into balance and see if that's possible. So the
Especially if they,
competition, yeah, so the competition reduces.
yeah. So what about this notion of friendly competition? Like, I'm better at tennis than you are. Oh yeah, let's see you on the court, And where does that impact relationship?
Well, it depends. If it's just banter and taunting in a friendly way just to be fun, that's great. But if you get on the court and they're constantly smashing the ball into your face, it's not fun anymore,
Yeah.
right? So, the thing about that is, unless you're a competitive tennis player in that case, you want to be making it easy for us both to get exercise and enjoy it. But if it gets to the point where both people are not enjoying it, then it's time for a conversation or coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if, like you said, it does, there is an element of that lack of trust, that lack of safety, that lack of feeling equal. Um, even when you do it in a friendly way, if you cross that line, as long as and it's really hard to see. So I would just stay away from the competition aspect as much as possible, right? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need to be in effect to have a great, in fact, putting it in there muddies the water, I feel, in a
Yes.
relationship.
I had a long-term relationship with a man who just surprised me and eventually delighted me with the fact that he wouldn't play cards or board games with me. And I said, "Why?" He said, "I will not be in competition with you. I will not. I will not interject that into our relationship."
It's a
Now
beautiful
that's
thing.
pretty conscious,
Yeah.
right? So when we can be that awake to, what am I doing? Why am I saying this? What am I saying? How often do I say it? And we become self-reflective to that point of view, then we can see, how would I like to be? What can I do differently? And calling attention to it is one way. Like my friend who will say, "Oh, I've been taking up all the airtime, haven't I?" Yep.
Yeah, and she's someone who cares, but has this tendency for whatever reason, and we bring it up. She notices it, or she notices on her own, and you just accept
We
her.
laugh about it.
Yeah.
We laugh, um, sometimes, and sometimes I will speak up right away if I have something that's really been monumental and changing in my relationship, and she tries to shift it. I'll say, "No, no, no, no. We're in the middle of this conversation. Let's have it first."
Yes.
And we can, because it's not an elephant in the room, it's something that we acknowledge. We can talk about it.
Yeah. And talking about it without the blame, shame, or guilt is
Yeah,
really important, because bringing it up, and you did it in a very, hey, I'd like to talk about myself if that's okay, at this point. And then she gets it, right?
yeah,
Um, and then, are there other tips for bringing it up,
yeah,
especially if you're in the heat of the moment of it? Like, I
yeah.
wouldn't bring it up then. I'd be like, okay, I need a little distance from this, and then I want to bring it up.
Yeah, well, one of the ways you can do it is use the personal weather report and say, "No, I still need support on this issue. Could we go back for a minute?" Right? So I'm identifying my need and speaking about it. And then of course the answer is always, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
But that's my contribution to that awareness that the relationship or the conversation can go sideways like that. And I can say, "No, I still need ideas on this, or I still need to support, or I need to talk about it more." And then we can adjust the conversation. But people sometimes don't do that. They suffer in silence. And they're just so happy to have a friend who will talk and all that. They don't want to rock the boat because they don't have the strategies to say, hey, I was talking about my experience. Could we keep doing that? Because they feel that selfish somehow.
Mm.
And it isn't. Equality is not selfish.
Oh, good one. Yeah. And I love the personal weather report, mostly because it leaves it over here with the person speaking about what they want and need, and doesn't make anybody else responsible. It does make requests, but there's no blame or shame or guilting going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to realize that you have the right to speak up on your own behalf. If you're feeling something, learn the strategies, learn the personal weather report. It's in my book, Kaizen for Couples. I have on my YouTube channel for relationship help. I've done videos on it. So it's something that when we talk about it here, you can easily go and find and learn more about it. And if there are two things, Laura, that I say are the two most important things that I can help people with. One of them is the personal weather report. And the other is realizing the truth of this statement. The truth is what you do. Because if we don't realize that our behavior is a demonstration of our real belief, and our language does not match our behavior, I always tell people, as you and I have spoken about, the mantra is always believe behavior, ABB. And so then if we take that into consideration and we see the behavior, then we can talk about the behavior.
Very important. If we're not looking at the behavior, it feels like in denial. We're being in denial about what's really going on.
Yeah, and if we don't have strategies to change it, we can perhaps maybe like use your word that you brought up earlier, insecure. I don't feel like I can jump in and say, but what about me? I want to talk. I have needs, and you don't feel that you can do that, then that's the piece to work on. Because if you can't equalize the relationship in some way, you might have to let that relationship go. Because every time you get off the phone or spending time with this person, you feel diminished and maybe a little resentful. And that's not healthy.
No. No, I want to bring us back to the three pillars you always talk about: the equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. And I loved how you demonstrated each one is not possible when competition is present in a relationship. It really is a relationship killer in that sense. So being able to speak up and use that strategy of the personal weather report is such an empowering way to bring us back to that equality, reciprocity, and mutuality, and connectedness, being able to bond through experiences versus compete in them.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be able to debrief our experiences, to be safe, to say, well, here's how that felt, or here's what I was thinking when that happened, or it made me curious about this about you, and be safe to do that. I mean, a relationship with another human that is someone you want to be close to has to be a safe place to land. If you perpetuate one in which you feel afraid, in which you feel uncertain, you feel insecure, you feel lacking in equality, then be self-reflective and say, why? Why is this good enough for me? Why am I settling for this? And what can I do to bring it back to what I'd like it to be? And empower yourself, It's really important, as I say all the time, just as it says on the screen, we need to be emerging empowered. So step by step, nanosecond by nanosecond, baby steps, be emerging empowered, do a little bit more. Maybe you can only have the feeling in the moment, I'm feeling a little minimized here, maybe not ready to speak up, but I realize that. Next time I'm going to prepare for this conversation by saying, if I feel minimized, I'm going to say something. And so you just go step by step until you see what the relationship can shift to, what the other person is willing to put into it and adjust to. And then you can make a decision about the relationship.
And what I'm hearing is a tone of kindness here. First of all, being kind with yourself. Like you said, take it where you can take it. Don't beat yourself up about this. Don't be in competition with yourself. you know, be kind to yourself. Know that, like you always say, you deserve to take up space. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to have that equality, reciprocity, mutuality in your relationships. And then you can speak up from there, from that place of kindness and of respect for yourself and other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And deserving is, sort of subjective, but it's healthy. If you take away the word deserve, say, I want to be part of a healthy interaction. I want to be a part of being supportive and being supported. And that balance is important. Sure, we all have times when we really need to take up the airspace, but the ebb and flow in the relationship has room for that, because you have established more equality and more caring and more safety. And sure, we'll always take care of somebody, a friend or whomever, who is really going through a tough time. We're not asking for equal airtime. That's the thing you see with hijackals. They always have to win. So I had one client just the other day who got COVID, and she was so sick, and her husband wouldn't take her to the hospital.
Oof.
Right? A hijackal husband in that case. He just said, if you're so sick, go to the hospital yourself. And he doesn't work or anything. He was sitting on the couch. So, you have to do a little calibration of, where is my relationship right now in terms of what we're talking about today, competition. And then if I need to solve something, or I need to interject some new strategies, or have a conversation about the competition and withdraw from the competition, then you know that you've been proactive in your own life.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is so important. And I know you help so many people, especially in the situations where they have someone who doesn't have the care for them that they want, that they need, and that they, like a normal
Deserve.
human being, yeah, should have.
Yeah.
So tell us about Emerging Empowered.
Emerging Empowered is the name of my work, but it's also my Emerging Empowered community, where the membership gets so many perks. It's really exciting right now, Laura. We've just added a new perk, which is an online journal where I do all the prompts, and then people can go through. There's 7 categories of journals that will be added. There's 2 in there now. And so that's a wonderful perk, because it comes with a membership. But also, you get 3 opportunities a month to be part of a group and ask me your questions. Plus, you get something free every 3 weeks. You get something new added from the day that you joined in. So much support. Online community, talk to everybody, get to know people, feel the support, and you do that at joinintoday.com.
And I love the perk you just added, because sometimes we always talk on this show about doing your own internal contemplation and thinking about it and meditating on things and thinking about your values and what you really want and how you can start reframing things. I would imagine that's what these prompts allow you to do, is start, it kind of guides you there, because it's like, where do I start? Well,
Yeah.
you get a prompt and you're off and running, and you're like activating your own inner power.
Yeah. So, just look at it. It takes you through the whole journey. The first journal is it emotional abuse? So how do I recognize it? And that's really good, even if you think you've already recognized it, because the prompts will take you deeper. And then the next one is the journal of stay or go, how you start to think about making that decision. Then the next one is about staying for now. If I can't leave right now, what do I have to think about? How do I do my own work? And the one after that is getting out, because there's a whole strategy and execution of that strategy in order to do it wisely and in a timely manner, and to take care of assets and children. And the one after that is called life after leaving. Like, what can I expect? And then following that is a totally separate one called raised by a hijackal. So if you had a hijackal parent, you want to work through that one. And the last one's on co-parenting. So how do you do all of that? So the idea is that the person can take themselves on that journey, which brings up questions that they can come to the 3 times when they can ask me questions in a group, and we can enrich the experience that way too.
Oh, sounds great. Juicy. I like it. Joinintoday.com.
That's where you find the membership. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And we are here periodically giving you great tips on how to transform your relationships, especially when it comes to dealing with hijackals. So we'll be back again soon.
We will. And in the meantime, stay safe and stay out of the competition.
Bye for now.
Bye bye.